everybody, and thank you so much for coming out on such a dreary evening. It's much appreciated to see the citizen participation. My name is Alicia Gardner, and I'm the citywide chair of the Quincy Democratic City Committee. And we are proud to offer the people in this audience and our viewers at home a chance to hear from the candidates who will be on the ballot, which is next Tuesday, which is November 5th. So let's hope for a better day next Tuesday. And what I want to do is I want to start by thanking the school department for allowing us to use this beautiful auditorium in Central Middle School. It is truly a beautiful setting for tonight's event. I also want to thank Quincy Access Television, its acting executive director, John Caleri, and its government access coordinator, Mark Crosby, with Scott Daniels, who is volunteering his services tonight to tape this event so that many more residents of the city can meet the candidates who wish to be their next mayor, a member of the city council, and a member of the school committee for this great city. I also want to thank the chair of our election committee, Mike Berry, and members Elisa Bay, Colin McMahon, Nancy Delisle, and Judy Capobianco for helping prepare and organize this event this evening. The following candidates will be on the ballot on Tuesday, November 5th, and all candidates on the ballot were invited to participate in tonight's forum. For mayor, Thomas B. Koch and Brenda Ryan, both are participating. For at-large councilors, Noel DeBona, Ann Mahoney, Nina Liang, Frank Rubino, and Joanne Sullivan Cantor have all been invited, and they all are participating. In Ward 1, the candidates are David McCarthy and Joe Murphy. Unfortunately, Mr. McCarthy was not able to attend, but Mr. Murphy will be participating this evening. In Ward 2, our current councilor, there is no opponent, and he is graciously accepted to come tonight, our council president, Brad Kroll. In Ward 3, Ian Kang and Roberto Soto, unfortunately, have decided not to participate. In Ward 4, Brian Palmucci is not participating. In Ward 5, Stephen Crisco and Charles Phelan are both on the ballot in Ward 5, and they both are participating this evening. And in Ward 6, Bill Harris and Will Eisenberg are your candidates, and both will be participating this evening. For school committee, the people on the ballot are Paul Bergoli, Kathleen Hubley, Courtney Perdios, and Frank Santoro. The candidate who has decided to participate tonight is just Courtney Perdios, and we thank you for coming. The following order is the order in which the candidates will be called to participate. We will first have up Ward 2, Brad Kroll. The next will be the Ward 6 candidates, Bill Harris and Will Eisenberg. We will then have the mayoral candidates, Tom Koch and Brenda Ryan. Then we will have school committee candidate Courtney Perdios. Then it will be our at-large councilors, Ann Mahoney, Noel DeBona, Nina Liang, Joanne Sullivan Cantor, and Frank Rubino. Frank. And we will then have our Ward 5 candidates, Stephen Christo and Chuck Phelan. And our final candidate will be from Ward 1, Mr. Joe Murphy. So that will be the order in which the candidates will appear tonight, and this is the following format for the evening. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening and closing remarks or statement. Then each candidate will be asked the same 2 questions and will each have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Due to the time constraints, because we do have a large number of candidates participating, which we truly appreciate, there will be no asking a question of each other from each candidate. Now I would like to introduce you to our moderators for the evening. Please welcome my members member Elisa Bay and Colin McMahon, who will take it from here. And again, thank you for coming this evening.
Brad, would you like to give your opening statement, please?
Sure. Thank you, Alicia and moderators and everybody here this evening for the invitation to participate in this evening's event. Like Alicia had said, my name is Brad Crow. I'm seeking re-election as your Ward 2 City Councilor. I also currently serve as a City Council President and been a lifelong Quincy resident, multi-generational, very active obviously in the neighborhood and the issues that affect us on a daily basis. I am the husband of Lori, father of Patrick, father of Brian, and we currently reside up in the Faxon Park area of the city of Quincy.
Thank you, sir. Your first question is this. What is your opinion on the Weymouth compressor station, and how do you propose to engage more residents in Quincy regarding the site of the compressor station?
So my position hasn't changed in over 4 years. I've been a outspoken anti-compressor person. Set up.
That was for your
Keep going. I've been a leader actually on the front of opposing the proposal to construct a 7,700 horsepower compressor station at the Fall River Basin. It's been a long battle. Those folks that have followed it, it has played itself in court. There's been multiple local jurisdictional rulings on the compressor station, and we just continue to fight. What my strategy to engage folks is to continue along the way that I have been through social media, electronic mail, hard copy mail, and really any mediums that are offered to me to engage the local community to continue to oppose this proposal that will gravely affect not only my district, but literally the region at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Your second question. During your tenure as the Ward 2 Councilor, what do you feel are some of your proudest accomplishments, biggest achievements?
Thank you for the question. With respect to my proudest accomplishments or major achievements, they're certainly there to be spoke about, but I think that, seeking my 5th term as City Councilor, and I think what my proudest achievement is that I've always remained plugged into the community, and I feel that an effective ward councilor knows the issues that affect residents in their neighborhood, and I feel my proudest achievement is that I've always been a listener before I spoke to really understand and capture, what the will of the residents or the will of the citizenry is, so that I can effectively articulate that at the city council meetings. Outside of, other maybe milestone accomplishments. I set out with the community in mind 8-9 years ago, and my passion still lies there, is, to be an effective listener, ultimately effective communicator, and really deal with the issues that affect people on a daily basis. So I would say the ability to listen is probably my favorite, or my most proud achievement.
Thank you, Councilor. Would you like to make your closing statement?
Closing statement. That's a quick 4 minutes. By the way, right? It might have even been 5. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to come here, Alicia. Thank you for your work, and obviously the committee chairs. I started out, volunteering with this group, so it's really nice to see it grow and evolve. I think about, we talked about listening. I really do try to keep my ear to the ground and focus on the issues that affect the people that I represent, both in my ward as well as the city. And I think when you consider my candidacy for the November ballot, I think you could trust on the fact that it's based on reliable leadership, the ability to communicate, and I think most importantly, the willingness to get things done. And I feel I have the track record to do that, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Those for Ward 6, please come to the stage. Councillor Harris, we would like to begin with your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the Quincy Democratic City Committee for this opportunity to speak. We've had 2 candidates' nights. And both nights, I have to tell you something, I really made a real big mistake. I forgot to thank my wife. And, you know, it's something about, we've been together for 32 plus years, and it's something about, you know, the people at home are the people that really, really take the hit when we're out and about doing what we do. And then they hear either criticism or praise, and I think my wife hates the praise more than the criticism, to be honest with you, because I think maybe she might vote for my opponent. But with that being said, I want to thank all the people who are helping me, my supporters, and my friends, and the people of Ward 6 who entrusted me after the last election. And I humbly ask that they give me another 2 years, and I'd really like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you like to ask the first question? Sure.
The first question is for Councillor Harris. Regarding transit services such... Oh, are we doing that? Okay.
Are we doing it?
Sorry. Will, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Will Eisenberg. I'm running for Ward 6 City Council. Hi everyone, I'm Will Eisenberg. I'm running for Ward 6 City Council. It's so great to be here at the Quincy City Democratic Committee debate. You know, I'm a secretary for the Ward 6 Quincy City Democratic Committee. I'm really happy to see some of our members here. It means a lot for people to come out and participate on a work night when everybody's tired. I'm running for City Council in Quincy and in Ward 6 specifically because we have some very serious issues affecting our community. You know, climate change has come to Quincy. We've suffered some really terrible storms in the last 18 months. It's going to happen again. It's only a matter of time. And I'm concerned that we haven't seen the leadership that we need on the City Council in order to meet those challenges. We've also all seen a tremendous amount of development in our city recently. I think that probably everybody in this room agrees, whether you're pro or con development, that there's a power imbalance right now. Right now, developers and big construction firms have too much say and too much authority in what's going on. My top priority is going to make sure that every stakeholder,
Thank
whether
you,
it's
Mr.
families
Eisenberg.
and labor
Sorry, Will,
unions,
that's
have a
time.
seat at the table. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The first question will be for Councillor Harris. Is there only one mic? Regarding transit services such as ferry services and green transportation, what are your plans to develop better ways to commute into Boston proper?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about my age.
Regarding transit services such as ferry services and green transportation, what are your plans to develop better ways to commute into Boston proper?
Well, as far as the ferry service is concerned, you know, I've followed the lead of our state leaders, Representative Ayers and Congressman Lynch, everybody who's been involved with the ferry service out of Squantum Point Park. In fact, Representative Ayers and myself spoke in front of the transportation. I took the day off from work. He invited me to the State House. We spoke in front of the Transportation Committee. Ferry service is both environmentally and economically the right way to go. Of course, we're in this, you know, unfortunately, we're in this argument with the neighbors to the north of us about the Long Island Bridge. But as far as that is concerned, I think that ferries are important. Obviously, electric vehicles in the city is is something that's being talked about, and something that's on the table on the city council, and I certainly support that 1,000%. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will, we'd like to give you the opportunity to answer this question.
Would you like us to repeat it?
Would you like us to repeat it?
No, I got it. Thank
Okay.
you. Well, I agree that ferry service is a great idea. In fact, prior to Representative Ayers and Councilman Harris raising the issue, I actually sent a letter in July to the Department of Parks and Recreation, urging them to make parking free at Squantum Point Park so that shuttle service could be sent to North Quincy. And I'll put that letter, it's on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Will for Ward 6, and I'll put that up again so that people can review it. I actually think the city should also look into buying its own ferry service. You know, it's something that we'd encourage Boston to do, and I think it's a great idea should Boston pursue its ill-fated or ill-considered project on Long Island. But I think it's something that the city of Quincy should certainly look into as well so that we have regular service and relieve some of the terrible congestion that we're dealing with, particularly in North Quincy and Squantum. So I think ferry service is a great idea, and I think it's something the city should consider purchasing on its own. As when it comes to electric vehicles, of course, I agree with my opponent, and my question to the city council is, you know, this is something that's been on the table before. The city's discussed this before. Why hasn't it happened? And I think it's simple. There's a simple reason it hasn't happened. No one's advocated for it yet. Well, I intend to. Energy efficiency and reducing congestion are important issues. As I said, climate change has come to Quincy. Electric vehicles is one way to alleviate our carbon footprint, and that's something we should be actively considering, not just sort of passively saying, well, it's a good idea, you know, we'll consider it, but actively pushing for it. And that's going to be a top priority when I'm on the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Will, this next question is for you first. Flooding is a regular occurrence in Ward 6. As Ward Council, how would you address the current issue, and how would you propose to rectify it in the future?
Thank you. That's an incredibly important question. You know, as I've been walking the ward, talking to people on Conant Street, Apthorpe Street, Carl, where I live, Atlantic, so many people have told me about, you know, horror stories about losing treasured possessions, about seeing their basements filled up. You know, I have a neighbor, a next-door neighbor, who lost her car in that terrible storm. And we need to be looking at short-term and long-term solutions. And, you know, we have a model. Ward 1 has been tackling this. When Howe's Neck got hit in the storm, they've been meeting regularly with the city engineer. They've talked about various seawall and drainage improvements. They've participated in a series of conversations. And I think it was just 2 weeks ago, Mayor Koch proposed a $3.5 million, I believe it was a bond for seawall and drainage improvements in Howe's Neck. And that's great. But, you know, where's Squantum? Where's North Quincy? Where's Atlantic? Who's advocating for us? So that's something I'm going to push for on day one. It's going to be one of our top priorities. There are short-term solutions as well. You know, there are FEMA grants that municipalities can participate in to purchase things like deployable flood barriers. They're sort of like instant sandbags. You put half a mile or a quarter mile in that on Quincy Shore Drive, you could save 20 houses. It's not going to save everyone, but you know, these sort of short-term and long-term solutions are things that we have to look into. I know that Mayor Koch's been involved with regional discussions about improving larger seawalls and things like inter-community seawalls. I think that's a great idea, and that's the long-term angle that we have to tackle. But Ward 6 needs relief, and I intend to deliver it. And I see our neighbors suffering from flooding, and to the greatest extent possible, I'm going to do everything I can to alleviate it. And I'm going to stay with people as well. That's the other thing. In the aftermath of a flood, let me tell you exactly what I would do. I would get between you and your insurance company to make sure that you had every dollar coming to you that was intended. I would proactively come out to you, knock on your door, make sure you had every single city resource that you needed. I would stay with you during the recovery to make sure that everything was going according to schedule. You would have an advocate and an ally on the city council in the aftermath of a flood. And that's the city councilor's responsibility, I think, and that's the service that I want to
All
provide.
right, thank you,
Thank
Will.
Counselor, same question. Would you like me to repeat it? All right, thanks.
I just want to say I was thrilled, not thrilled, because it's nothing when it comes to FEMA is thrilling, especially when it comes to the city of Quincy and our coastline and our folks, residents who live along the coastline. But as far as being an advocate and someone saying nobody's advocating, well, you know what, that's just absolutely not true when it came to myself and Margaret LaForest and Bill O'Donnell, the Register of Deeds. We filled the North Quincy High School auditorium. We ran a FEMA, when the FEMA maps came out, we ran a help night where we had the Registry of Deeds there, We were helping folks with their insurance companies, with their mortgage companies, and what was said about being proactive is just absolutely not true. I've supported the day of the big storm that I've been criticized about because my mailbox was full was because I was out on the streets. I've been out on the streets driving around with the public works during snowstorms since I've been in office. And anybody who knows me knows what they're hearing is not true. I'm out there, I'm answering the phone as it comes in, and I just have to say that it's been very disappointing, this election here that I've been in. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Would you like to make your closing statement? Sure. Will?
Sure. Will, do you want to start?
Sure. So this is what I want to say. Ward 6, you are powerful. You are a powerful community. Ward 6 is one of the electoral engines of Quincy. We have consistently some of the highest voter turnout in the entire city. And right now, it's not turning into much after Election Day. Whether you're going to vote for Mayor Koch or not, and I take no position, I think that there are things I like about the mayor administration, there are things I don't like. But what I want you to remember is that the administration needs you, Ward 6. You don't need them. You are a passionate, engaged political community. And you have some very serious issues affecting us. We see traffic rising in our community. We see our seniors worried who are getting priced out of their homes and their communities. We see delays on the T. We see the Neponset Bridge traffic growing ever more burdensome to our working families who commute in Boston. And we don't really have someone advocating for us. And that's what I'd like to change. So I will be a strong, independent voice on the city council. I will be,
Thank you,
I'm a
Will.
lawyer,
That's
and I'm
time.
a zealous advocate for my clients. I want to be a zealous advocate for you. Thank you very much.
Councilor Harris?
Thank you. I'm going to stand up for the final.
Sure.
Thank you. I am going to take a position as it comes to the mayor. If you don't vote for the mayor, we all go down. So that's how I feel, because there's no infrastructure ready to go in if the mayor wasn't to get elected. And that, myself, is irresponsible. I ask people, don't be irresponsible. I can't believe the things I just heard about seniors, and I have to tell the folks, especially in our last, the folks who are going to be holding signs, don't fall into the trap of getting baited into what you've heard. And what you heard was that, and it's upsetting, and it overflowed at the last debate in Squantum, was the fact that people, my neighbors next door, 2 doors down, being harassed. People with signs on my lawn, their lawns being harassed. A senior, a son of a senior, she said I was doing a good job, and that senior was pressured and felt uncomfortable. That's not Bill Harris, and I want the people who work with me not to do that when we're out holding signs, when we're out knocking on doors. We're just going to stay on the high ground, and we're not going to lower ourselves to the level that the politics that is dragging this country down.
Thank you,
be
Councilor.
at this
That's
level.
time.
I ask you for your vote. My name's Bill Harris, and I am the Ward 6 City Councilor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You're done.
Thank
nice
you.
job, guys. Would the candidates for mayor please make their way to the stage? Would you like to start them off with?
Mayor, would you like to start with your opening statement? Mayor. Oh, would you like to start with your opening statement?
First?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to join you tonight here at the beautiful Central Middle School. One of the three new beautiful schools that we built over the last several years, really investing in our school system. There's 3 areas I wanted to mention. One is public safety. We are adding 16 patrolmen, 28 firemen over this next year. This city has incredible dedicated public servants at both police and fire. We're reinvesting into our firehouses. We're giving them more of the apparatus and the tools that they need. If you look at the FBI statistics, crime is down over the last 10 years in the city dramatically. That's not by accident. The police officers are doing an incredible job. I mentioned our schools. The schools are doing extremely well, and as chair of the school committee, I'm so proud of the progress that has been made. Our test scores are up, our graduation, our rates are much higher. We've become a model for the state in many, many areas. And the third piece is the infrastructure. We're an old city, and a lot of the infrastructure, the can's been kicked down the road for a long time. We're addressing buildings, schools, firehouses, seawalls, pipes, and roads. There's more to do, but we made some tremendous progress. And I also want to add the amount of dollars we've been able to leverage because our relationships, both at the federal and state level, have brought tens of millions of dollars in to match the local tax dollars to do these kinds of improvements. So I've enjoyed, and it's a privilege to be a mayor, and I look forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Brenda, would you like to give your opening statement?
Hi, my name is Brenda Ryan, and I am seeking your vote for mayor of this wonderful city. I am running this campaign without raising funds, therefore no signs, stickers, or mailings. I've tried to reach the voters by Quincy Access Television, Patriot Ledger, Quincy Sun, and face-to-face talks. I live on Hospital Hill and have been a member of the Hospital Hill Neighborhood Association for some time, and I'm dealing with Fox Rock and the rental development that's going in the neighborhood prompted this run, and also I'm opposed the compressor in Weymouth as well, and I go to meetings for that as well. It's more how the residents are being treated when it comes to some hefty issues in the city, whether it be the compressor, which is dangerous and it's not healthy for the air quality, and how the different levels of the political system are set up to kind of pass the buck to a different office. So I just feel like the regular person, the regular citizen isn't being heard, and I'm running for mayor against Mayor Koch. So.
Thank you. Mayor Koch, this first question is for you. The evidence of climate change is undeniable, and the window for meaningful action is shrinking. As Quincy is a waterfront city, what will you do to help cut down the city's carbon footprint?
Well, I think we've had a pretty good, strong record on the environmental issues. We've done a number of initiatives. We've done a lot of solar panels on our school roofs. We've done LEDs all over the place, including buying the street lighting system and adding the LEDs to that. We've just taken styrofoam out of the waste stream of our schools. We invested an additional $43,000 to do that in all our school kitchens. We are making a lot of progress on the new buildings. They're much tighter, much more energy efficient, the elite buildings. We'll continue to do that as we build out the infrastructure. We're also going to be practical in the sense of how we're dealing with it. I heard earlier about the seawall discussion. We're investing some serious money in seawalls in sections of our city that are vulnerable. A number of streets and neighborhoods, if you were probably building out the city today, you probably wouldn't build on some of these areas before the conservation laws were enacted. So nature's reclaiming some of those spots it once had hold on. So we have a great relationship with the Climate Action Network. We meet regularly. They set agendas. We were the first to hire an energy manager whose specific job is to do these kinds of projects and improvements and recommendations. So I think we're making good progress, but there's more to do.
Thank you. Brenda, your response?
Sure. The evidence of climate change is undeniable, and the window for meaningful action is shrinking. As Quincy is a waterfront city, what will you do to help cut down the city's carbon footprint?
Okay. Touching on the floods, we had that QCAN meeting last week, and sure enough, there was a show on about clam beds that you can put in the ocean that helps stop the flooding coming onto the land. We can develop less anywhere near marshes. I noticed there's something going on Commander Shea Boulevard where you're widening the road, and there's so many places throughout the city that there seems to be some plans coming down the pike. So stay away from the ocean, help the residents that live on the ocean, and keep the trees.
Thank you. Brenda, this next question starts with you. Quincy is a challenging city to navigate to our residents with disabilities. What will you do to help give these residents a voice and create necessary change? Will this be a high priority?
Absolutely, like public transportation? Well, sidewalks, obviously.
Accessibility.
Disability, wheelchairs. Make sure the T is accessible for, like Wollaston T was just redone, that's now accessible for wheelchair. Sidewalks, it's important that they can get off the curb to get around. The ride with the T, help as much as possible. I don't know.
Thank you, Brenda. Mayor, same question. Would you like for me to repeat it? Quincy is a challenging city to navigate for our residents with disability. What will you do to help give those residents a voice and create necessary change? Will this be a high priority?
Yes, we actually reestablished the Disabilities Commission. We expect them to be meeting next month. But everything we do on infrastructure changes or improvements, the ADA issue is a front and center. Some of you may know we just paved a section of Hancock Street between Norfolk Downs back to about Fenno Street. And every corner, the handicap ramps were addressed before the road was paved. That's a requirement, that's the law, and that's what we do. We've made adjustments in our school buildings, and we'll continue to do that. You know, when we have the opportunity to build a new building like this, or Southwest, or Quincy High, or about to do Squantum, those are things we really think about and spend some time on, because these old buildings just weren't built for that. So I think we have a pretty solid record of doing what we're supposed to be doing to make it as easy as possible for this population. And I got to thank the governor for the work on the Red Line. I heard some discussion earlier. You know, the state is spending $1 billion on the Red Line, which is leading or led to the Wollaston Station reopening, which is handicap accessible now. Improvements at the Quincy Center, which is going to lead to additional elevators, as well as improvements at North Quincy Station. So instead of a train every 6 minutes in a couple of years, it's going to be a train every 3 minutes. So I think that's going to be a big help to a number of the issues we talked about tonight.
Thank you. We'd now like to move to the closing statements. Brenda, would you like to go first?
Thank you for your time. I hope I covered as much as I possibly could. I left my speech on the kitchen table, but anyway. I love Quincy, and I think we have so many wonderful people here that deserve to have a voice. I think the city council also has a lot of great ideas, but they kind of fall flat. There's always great ideas about tax relief for residents that live in their home, many different things that just fall on deaf ears. So with the Plan A form of government, which is strong mayor, weak council, as much as the council wants to do what they think is right, there is a part that stops them. So I will listen to the elected officials, city council members, and the at-large councilors, and go from there. So what else? If there's anything you want to ask me, which I'm not covering, please feel free to take the time or call me at 617-472-1923. I would love to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Koch, your closing statement?
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I appreciate you sponsoring the event here at the beautiful auditorium. It's certainly been a privilege for me to serve as the mayor over this last 12 years. When we took office, we saw the Great Recession. Some argued it was the greatest downfall financially since the Great Depression back in the 20s. We came through that working together. I think my style of leadership is one of collaboration with my colleagues in government, giving everybody the opportunity and respect to have a position, put the ideas together, and let the best idea move forward so we can move the city forward. I'm so proud, as I mentioned, of area in public safety, public education, our infrastructure. We're going through all kinds of reinvestment in our city on our parks, work in our libraries, first-class senior center at the Kennedy Center. I hear the discussion about taxes, and I often speak about that. You know, we're not the highest, and we're not the lowest. We fall in the mid-range. We're on our fourth school without a Proposition 2.5 override. City of Somerville had to have an override for one school. Town of Weymouth had to have an override for one school. So what you're seeing great investment back into the community, leveraging your dollars to those of the federal and state governments, which I find is my responsibility. I'm so proud of our city. I have 3 children that are graduates of Quincy Public Schools, and I'm privileged to serve, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We'd now like to invite the candidate for school committee up to the stage. Which microphone works?
The center one.
Is it the center one?
Yes.
Try
I think so.
center
I think that's
Try
the
that
one.
one.
That's the one. Can you do it, please?
Courtney, would you like to make your opening statement?
Absolutely. Thanks. Hi, my name's Courtney Perdios. I'm a first-time candidate running for a seat on the Quincy School Committee. My husband, Steve, and I have 3 daughters that all attend Quincy Public Schools. My 2 youngest, Molly and Hannah, are in 3rd and 4th grade at Clifford Marshall Elementary. And my oldest, Casey, is in 6th grade here at Central Middle School. For the past 7 years, I've been an active PTO volunteer and leader, both at Clifford Marshall and on citywide PTO. Through that work, I've learned a lot about our school system and have learned how to use my voice to advocate for our students, parents, teachers, and staff. I entered the race for school committee for 2 reasons. First, because I really enjoy doing this advocacy work, and secondly, because right now no other school committee candidate or current school committee member has younger children in the Quincy Public Schools. As a parent with daily firsthand interaction with the system at both the elementary and middle school level, I feel that I can bring a perspective that's currently missing from the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Your first question. Some parents feel that kids are assigned too much homework. Do you think changes should be made to the QPS homework policy, and what should those changes be?
Yes, thank you for that question. So on my role as citywide PTO co-president, I was able to advocate for dusting off the homework policy that we've had in our system. So it's the last time it was revised was about 20 years ago. So I'm glad that we were finally able to take an advocacy role in dusting that off and looking at it again. So we created, the superintendent invited us to participate in a committee that had a member of the school committee, Emily Lebo, and also my other co-president on citywide PTO, Scott Alessandro. There was also a Quincy Teacher Union rep, Allison Cox was there, and from the special ed community, Cassandra Beck, and as well as the superintendent. So we were all kind of asked to look at it and figure out if homework, what has changed in homework over the last 20 years. We're expecting a lot of our students these days. There's a lot of students that need to contribute to the financial stability of their family and have a part-time job. Also sports commitments, whether there's a couple hours of practice a night or a game. They also have to do community service hours, and if they're in the band, things like that. There's a lot of commitments that our kids have, especially at the high school level. And we were feeling that parents were coming to us saying how overburdened they were at the high school level, and alternately on the elementary school level, a lot of parents felt like they couldn't see the purpose in the homework worksheets that were coming home. So on our committee, as we talked about it, we created a survey that went out to all students, all parents, and all teachers. The students, just to qualify that, it was grades 3 to 12. And we asked them, honestly, what their thoughts were on homework. We asked them a bunch of different questions, and we were able to finally go through the answers. And it did seem, almost everybody took it seriously. There was a lot of conversation. Maybe kids wouldn't take it seriously, homework's crappy, that type of stuff. But they actually took a really mature look at it. And it does seem like we really need to be able to show parents and show students why they're doing it, the purpose of it. And sometimes when that purpose is made clear, it factors in more on whether or not it's worthwhile. So thank you.
Thank you. Your second question is, how do you plan on bridging the language and culture barriers that Quincy residents may face as immigrant parents of first-generation children with regard to communicating with administrators and educators in the Quincy public school system?
Can you do it one more time? It was a really long question. Thank you.
How do you plan on bridging the language and cultural barriers that Quincy residents may face as immigrant parents of first-generation children with regard to communicating with administrators and educators in the Quincy public school systems?
Okay, thank you for repeating. Yes, so I think a real big strength of our Quincy Public Schools is its diversity. I know at Clifford Marshall Elementary alone, there's 35 languages spoken, so it's really important, and it's fantastic. It actually it adds to our school system. Bringing more cultures, more voices, and more perspectives together always makes our community better. And we should be embracing diversity of cultures and ideas at every level of our school system, not only in the classroom with our students, but in policy discussions we have and decisions we make. As far as communication with parents that are coming here that don't speak the language, it's very, very important. I know that we've been trying to translate more of our materials into different languages that are popular at our schools. I think that more effort needs to be done at that. I know some of the high school students, it's been suggested that perhaps they could use their community service hours to do some translating. I think that's a really good idea. I think maybe hiring an additional person or two to be doing some translating services to outreach is important. Definitely to make sure our IEP, students on IEPs, their families understand what the plans are, and for the student is very important as well. I know on our PTO, we try our best. Nancy over there is on our PTO. We try our best to have parents, we kind of match parents that are willing to work with the PTO with families so that they can interpret for us and encourage them to join our PTO and be part of our community, because they are just as much a part of our community whether or not they speak the language first or not. Thank you.
Thank you. We would now like to invite you to make your closing statement when you're ready.
Thank you. So I know I speak for all the school committee candidates here tonight when I say thank you, Alicia, and to our moderators, Alicia, is it Alicia? Alicia, and Colin, and everyone at the Quincy Dems for organizing and inviting us to tonight's event. In closing, I want to say I'm really excited to bring new energy and ideas to the school committee. I've learned that advocacy is sometimes as easy as a phone call, but more often it takes diligence, resolve, and hard work. I believe that all school committee candidates should personify those qualities. They should be able to lead discussions, even the difficult ones. They should be someone that parents can go to and ask for help. They should be someone who isn't afraid to stand up for what's right, fair, and equitable. They should be able to work with others to protect our children and make our schools and the education it provides the best it can be. I've done all these things as a parent volunteer, and I will continue to do so as a school committee member if elected. Again, my name is Courtney Perdios, and I respectfully ask for your vote for school committee next Tuesday on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we put the flowers down because the people at the end are going to
At this time, we'd like to invite the at-large counselor candidates to the stage.
How should we do this? So all of them are the opening statement.
Yeah, we'll start from, we'll say we're going from left to right. So
Okay.
we'll start with Frank. Is Frank at the end?
Frank is at the end, yes.
At this time, we'd like to invite each candidate to make an opening statement. We're going to start at the leftmost end and just work our way right. So Frank, whenever you're ready and whenever you find the working microphone, take it away.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name's Frank Rubino, candidate for Councilor at Large. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I live in the Quincy Point neighborhood. I'm a first-time candidate. I have an accounting finance background. I went to Bentley University where I earned an MBA degree. I've spent the past 10 years working as a budget analyst in both the public and private sector. If elected, some of my top concerns will be, top issues that I'll focus on will be implementing solutions to ease traffic congestion, making sure Quincy stays affordable for all residents to live in, and curbing the excessive residential real estate development. I enjoy being active and involved here in the city. I was the treasurer of Quincy Pride. I've also been involved with Quincy Climate Action Network, Quincy Community Action Programs, and South Shore Elder Services. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming here tonight and inviting us. I am Joanne Sullivan. My husband is Cantor. He passed 10 years ago. We have 3 beautiful children. My youngest just went to college last year. I got my car back, and I'm ready to give back to the community. I've always been very active here in the community. I'm pro-life, pro-animals. I support the Mayor's Koch's good vision, full-time ferry, new handicap MBTA trains and buses, new Safe and Sound Streets program, and a new Quincy Star tax-exempt program for lower taxes for veterans, senior citizens, disabled, civil service, and first-time home buyers. I also support new schools and parks. I want to stomp out the opioid epidemic. I'm against the Long Island Bridge, the Weymouth Compressor Station, oversized buildings, overpopulous areas. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to start by thanking everyone at Quincy Dems for hosting us tonight. I know it's not easy to put this together, so I want to thank all of you for putting it on and for all of you for joining us. My name is Nina Liang, and I'm excited to run for re-election as your city councilor at large. My goal has always been to ensure that everyone's voices are heard on issues across our city, and then to take action to move us all forward together. During my first term as your councilor, I worked to address the lack of engagement and collaborative efforts for downtown projects by amending the process to require more transparent dialogue and essentially allowing for the City Council to serve as a voice for the residents of Quincy. Fighting for fiscal responsibility, I held city agencies accountable not only to the budgets that they had proposed, but also to the missions that they put in front of us, cutting unnecessary spending and ensuring that your tax dollars are being spent effectively and efficiently. This term, after years of collaborative efforts between a number of residents like Frank Rubino and the administration, I successfully created the city's first LGBTQ commission. And when the MBTA refused to communicate with us, I demanded that they provide in-depth updates to the residents and the city, and got them. I'm proud to point to these accomplishments, but my work is far from over. I'm really excited to be here tonight. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th and look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and I'd like to thank the Quincy Dems as well, close to my heart, and all of you for coming out tonight. I'm Ann Mahoney, and I'm a candidate for re-election for councilor at large. I want to tell you that I humbly have just finished my first term, and let me tell you, I know how the people's business is being done at the City Council. And when things are being done correctly, I'm there to support it, but when they're not, I'm there to question it. And as I promised 2 years ago, I wouldn't be a rubber stamp. I would push back and ask those questions to make sure that we're getting the best that we possibly can in the city of Quincy. And when it comes to fiscal responsibility and making sure the projects are getting done, and also making sure that our community is being the strongest that it can be, I'm there to ask those questions for you. I was also there when it came time to reinstating the Disabilities Commission. I appreciated earlier the mayor's comments on that, but it had been defunct for over 7 years, and we did need that back because we have a lot of people who need those services. I was also there for the LGBT community. When I got elected, there was something that wasn't there for them, and that was the Day of Pride. 2 years ago, we organized it, and we had our first ever Quincy Pride Day 2 years ago in June, and I'm happy to say it's a 501c3 standing up and getting ready to work right alongside that LGBT Commission. And when it came to our neighborhoods, I was there to support them and make sure they had a voice so that the overdevelopment didn't overcrowd them. I look forward to the conversation, and I thank you very much for inviting me here tonight.
Good evening. My name is Noel DeBona. I want to thank Quincy Dems also for hosting this tonight. Raised here in Quincy, having 3 children in the Quincy Public Schools now, going through the Quincy Public Schools. I furthered my education with a bachelor's degree at UMass Boston. Some of the major issues going across the city today that we've worked on in the last 4 years have been, the traffic, the overdevelopment, the parking, and the taxes. Those are the 4 major items I've been hearing for the last 6 years of being an elected official, even on the school committee, prior to being on the city council. Some of the issues 2 years ago that we've really worked on, as myself worked on, is streets, roads, and trees. Tree removals and tree plantings. We've done a very aggressive bonding program to help out the residents in those different avenues. We have more work to be done. I'm looking forward to a lot of questions tonight. The major issues that I'm really positive about are education, public safety, and infrastructure improvements. I feel that I'm a nuts and bolts type of counselor. I continue to advocate for those main items. I'm at a stopping point here. I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and I humbly ask for one of your 3 votes on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Mahoney, this first question will be for you. And I want to remind all the candidates that we will be asking the same 2 questions. So we're going to start with this first question to everyone, and then move to the second question for everyone. Okay. So the first question is, how do you propose to bridge the gap of cultural and language barriers that disenfranchise members of the community that you serve? How do you know you are doing well by them if you can't communicate with them and they don't know or may not trust you?
So thank you for that question. I work very hard when I go out to any of the senior houses or even while I was on the school committee to make sure the language barrier was something that we were closing the divide on. When I go out, I always try to make sure I have an interpreter. And many people always think that it's, we do have a high population of Asian immigrants in the city of Quincy, multilingual, which is, there's not one language that's going to suit the needs for everybody, but we also have many other languages. We have senior houses that have other languages that also have to be interpreted as well. And I've done my due diligence by making sure that I am able to translate my materials as best I can in the multi-languages that we do have in the city of Quincy. We do have Betty Yao at City Hall. I also believe that I questioned both the fire and police chief when they came before the city council, questioning the civil service and why we're not actually trying to bring in more police officers and emergency people to be able to meet the needs of our constituents. I often use the fact of my parents being 90 and 93 and the example what it's like to have an emergency that happens and they don't often want to be going with the emergency. But if you didn't speak the language, then we really do need to be able to communicate for those audiences because it's a fearful thing that happens. So I'm a big believer that we need to start educating earlier in the Quincy Public Schools and allow kids to know that there's opportunities for them to be able to go into civil service and then push the city also to make sure that we're mirroring our community as much as we possibly can by hiring more people that actually are able to communicate to our constituents in a way that we're able to do the services that we deserve. The other thing is when we do have things that are going on in the city of Quincy, such as when we had the Wollaston Beach was closed due to water contamination, making sure that signage was put up to make sure that everybody understood that you could not use the beach. It's just really important that we're allowing them to know that. Last week we had high winds and making sure that that's also being communicated. We do have the ability to communicate through the telephone as well, and they can do that in multi-languages as well, and also using the website as many possibilities to be able to post that as well. We have a lot of work to do on that, though.
Thank you.
Thank you for the important question. So I think it's really important to stress, and somebody mentioned this earlier, that diversity is, I think, one of the city's best attributes. And growing up here in the city and running a small business here, what I've seen over time, regardless of who you're interacting with, is that we all have the same issues across the board. When the MBTA wasn't communicating with us, and primarily in an area of the city that has a high Asian population, I stood up and made sure that they were translating their flyers. I made sure that they had, interpreters at the meeting. It was really unfortunate that once they did have interpreters there, no one from the AAPI community had showed up, and it's because they had the meeting the day after the biggest Chinese holiday of the year. But it's small things like that that really fall through the cracks that I'm committed to staying on top of and making sure that folks are making it a top priority, because regardless of what you communicate here in the city, regardless of what services we want to provide, which are many across the board, if we can't communicate it to the residents that are here that we are serving, then it's going to fall through the cracks. I have residents here in the city who call me who are speaking a different language. And they're upset about the same thing that someone down the street speaks English is upset about. Why are my taxes so high? Why hasn't this tree been cut down? This pothole in front of my house keeps popping my tire in my car. You know, again, I find that regardless of where somebody comes from, what language they speak, when they reach out to their government and they want their government to be there to help them, the issues are the same across the board. And as the elected leader here in the city that can speak two languages, that has been a top priority of mine, to make sure that everyone in the community is included together and is treated the same. Because again, we're all in the same city. We face the same issues. We need to make sure that they feel like they are heard and that their issues will be addressed regardless of what language you speak. Thank you.
Thank you. No? Sorry, we skipped.
I got excited about that question. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. How do you propose to bridge the gap of cultural and language barriers that disenfranchise members of the community that you serve? How do you know you are doing well by them if you can't communicate with them and if they don't know and may not trust you?
Very good question. I'm going to start off by saying I'm a sociology major at University of Massachusetts, Boston. I studied people. So the best I could do without the language barrier is body language. Body language and reading people's tone and voice inflection and all these different tools that I've learned over the years, also being in the sales industry, of how to read somebody without being able to communicate them with a language. You know, also working with the constituent services that we have in our department, having a relationship with Betty Yao and other constituent service people in the city to work together collaboratively. I've had a good relationship with all the department heads, and we worked very well in other departments, and the constituent services department really helps out and bridges that language barrier that we have. Also working on the school committee prior to being on the city council, working with Asian students, you know, just being able to interact with children, the cultural differences, the diversity that we have, not only in the schools, but as well as out in the public eye. Being involved with the MBTA in their meetings and having the proper signage up to make sure that everybody understands and is on the same level playing field. We have that in voting, where we have the voter ballots and the voter signage, and we put it in the newspapers now. I think maybe as a legislative body of government, it might be beneficial for us to actually maybe require or do an ordinance change that we require this signage to be in all new documents, all new signage to allow the language barrier for the reading barrier as well. So I'm willing to work with anybody, and I can kind of read where someone's at just by their tone of voice. I can read them just by their voice inflections and how their body language is going. And I can figure out who's with who tonight, too, as well. It's kind of funny, but thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, it is now your question. Would you like it repeated?
Oh, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, first, no matter who you're speaking to, always greet them with a smile. And once you know that the person is having a language barrier, you try to offer some solutions, as all people need to be respected. One great resource is a language line. It's a phone service that translates the non-English speaker's message to the other person in the conversation and back in their language to that person. So the communication dialogue flows evenly and becomes a responsible conversation that helps one another. Another way is to translate electronically, which is through Google, online, and also being prepared with the translated written information ahead of time of the communication, and which this other language or other languages should be noted when the new resident comes to our town. And another way is to ask the person to bring a friend or a family member that could help communicate the conversation. It's helpful, as well as everybody else's things here.
Thank you. And last but not least.
Thank you. As a city, we should be doing everything we can to address the language barriers. Our city government should have no problem providing an interpreter for things such as community events, as well as translating print materials into different languages, and that's something that we should be pushing our city government to provide. And we should also keep in mind that even though we have a strong Asian population here in Quincy, there are multiple languages that fall under that. Mandarin, as well as Vietnamese. And we want to make sure our Vietnamese population is not left out when it comes to interpreters as well as translation of print materials. I think we should make, as far as the city services, I think we should make a top priority as far as the language barriers, the critical city services such as police, fire, EMTs, and the Office of Emergency Management, making sure they have everything they need to provide interpreters and address the different language barriers. Because though I think Councilor Mahoney addressed this earlier, when an EMT shows up at your door and there's a language barrier, that's not a very good situation to be in. And as far as Office of Emergency Management, we do need to make sure that the next time we have a severe storm, that there's no language barriers in that situation as far as how to recover from the storm, how to get help if you need help from the severe weather storm. And these are all things I would push for. And as far as embracing different cultures here in Quincy, I would like to see Quincy organize a cultural fair where we showcase all the different cultures that we have here in Quincy in addition to the Asian population. I think that'll be a good thing for us to organize here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. The next question will be for you. Again, Frank, yes. What is your opinion on the Weymouth compressor station, and how do you propose to engage more residents in Quincy regarding the site of the compressor station?
Thank you. Just like most residents, as well as most elected officials, I'm against the Weymouth compressor station. It's great to see our community come together like this on this issue. And I really don't see any reason why somebody would be in favor of having this compressor station. There's going to be, if it were to move forward, there would be health issues, environmental issues, and it's definitely something we do not want in our neighborhoods. And if elected, I would join the other elected officials in fighting this. And as far as engaging more residents, I think a good way to engage more residents would be to come up with a list of new people who have moved to Quincy Point, to North Weymouth, to South Quincy, because the new people who move to those neighborhoods probably are not aware of the Weymouth compressor station and what's going on there, and we can reach out to them, send them a mailer to see if they'd be interested in getting involved, or at the very least, informing them of this critical issue so that they're aware of it as new neighbors to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, this question goes to you. Do you need me to repeat it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm against the Weymouth compressor station. It's beyond me why it's even taken so long and not been stopped and denied. I'm on the committee. I go to the rallies. They send us emails, and we write to our elected officials up through the governor. Also, it's beyond me why that company, which is a sub-company of the company that wants a Weymouth compressor station, is allowed to do the assessment of that, which should be illegal, and I'll continue to make it a priority to stop that from happening for us and all our neighbors.
Thank you. Nina, this question goes to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you bringing this up a couple of times tonight because it, for me, gives a great opportunity to highlight what happens when you have collaborative efforts between government and the residents. And this is an instance where I had an opportunity to go to a meeting earlier this year, spearheaded by a lot of the information that I found working with our council president, Brad Kroll, and the Ward 1 Councilor Dave McCarthy, to get together with elected officials, not just here in Quincy, not just our state legislators. I see Senator Keenan here in the audience, not just our federal elected officials, Congressman Lynch was there, but we also had the mayors and local elected officials and state legislators from Weymouth and Braintree, and to see all of them in a room in Quincy where we could collectively come together and say, let's make sure that all of our efforts together as elected officials and the residents' efforts are all coming together so that we can put the best foot forward to beat this. That, to me, was something that was absolutely incredible and should be an example of what government should be doing, right? The top priority is serving the residents, and we were all in the room doing that on this one issue, and this one issue is what brought us all together to come and say, what is going to be the next step for all of us to work together collectively, representing our residents, to make sure that we stop this. And, to know that, amongst my colleagues on the city council, the mayor's office, the state legislator, and all the way up to Congressman Lynch, and across multiple cities to do this together is something really amazing. And we need to make sure that residents are aware that these conversations are happening. We need to make sure that they can participate and join this fight with us, because we can do it if we all continue to work together. And we have to make sure that these collaborative efforts are done in tandem so that we can make sure that this compressor station does not happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne, your question?
Yes, so I think we're all universally against the compressor station. What's fearful to me is that they still seem to be winning in the approvals of certain things. So I do think the trifecta, the fact that we're working with Braintree and Weymouth and Quincy, and we're all unified in the direction that we need to go in. We also have to be very active as a constituent base. I know that at the State House, and I'm drawing a blank. I wish I had my phone up here because I know that I said I was going. I don't know if it's this week. They're going to be having something at the State House in regards to the science. It's Friday. I thought it was tomorrow, though. For some reason in my head, there's something else going on tomorrow. But on Friday, they're going to be having. So if anybody has time, I would look that up on Facebook. That they're going to be coming on Friday to be able to stand up against it. It's the science behind what's going on with the compressor station. The reality of this is that, we can all stand together, but the EPA and the certain courts, and the city of Quincy put money towards this. But what people don't realize is that the area in which that it's terrifying, really, what could happen if this goes into our community. Not just in Weymouth, but not just in the area of the shipyard, but actually how far out the area is. And we need to all really band together and let people know that if they're not on the right side with us, as we combine and group together, that they need to be on the right side, and if they're not, then we're going to remind their elected base that they're not on the right side too. And it goes all the way up to the federal government, where right now we live in a world that's kind of frightening, where the EPA isn't as strong as it needs to be, because the federal government is weakening that, and because we don't have people that are representing us at the federal government that's going to protect our best interests. But the best thing that we can do, and I say this all the time to people, the power is in your vote, the power is in your voice, the power is in your organization, and the power is going out and supporting this. And this is one thing that we need to unify together and actually really be heard strongly, all 100,000 of us in the city of Quincy, because this will impact our whole city should it go through. So I don't think I could be any more passionate about this, but I definitely am against the compressor station. So I'm not sure if everybody got that, but that's where I stand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We learned up at the city council, so a lot of the other have kind of answered the question. Let me elaborate a little bit to the data that I've gotten from the Thomas Craig Public Library at a meeting last year. They were already saying that studies over there from the Procter & Gamble some years ago already has contamination in the soil. It already says they have contamination in pipes. Some of it can be airborne. Now, I have a two-family on Lawn Ave, which is the middle street right behind that Dairy Queen area there. We lived there for 3 years. My child is diagnosed with autism, and I don't know if the link is connected to that, but there's plenty of children in that Germantown, Quincy Point, Howes Neck area that have autism, and is a connection towards this. Now, just think about that for a minute, and now you're going to put a compressor station in there on top of the contamination already in that particular area of Weymouth, the Braintree section in Quincy. We're already in a bad area over there, and now you're going to put the contamination and more of it in that area. You've got to think about the health and safety of our seniors, cancer rates. We may get data down the road, 10 or 15 years down the road, but that's too late. So we have to put preventative measures in to stop this. Now, I know, why does somebody want to have it? Why does somebody want to have it in there? It's one thing, money. It's all about money at the end of the day, financial gain. So we as a collaborative group, FRAC, and the rest of the organizations have to band together, other elected officials, and fight this. So I'm part of the fight towards it. I'm looking forward to the future of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'd like to invite our candidates to make their closing remarks. Noel, since you have the microphone, we'll just start with you and head to the left.
I want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight. This is number 7 of 7 candidate nights. The Cat Lodge has had the most, actually. So here we are rounding it out. Sometimes you save a little bit for the end so they don't steal anything. Anyways, You know, why did I run for re-election? Why did I become a be involved in politics? I started off as a community activist, coaching little kids football and soccer, being a community activist for veterans, junior vice commander of the Sons of the American Legion, Morrisette Post 294. I've been there since 2012 and still continue to do that. I'm involved very much in the community. I have 3 children in the Quincy Public Schools. It gave me the opportunity to rise to the occasion today. What was it? It was teachers, it was coaches, it was professors, it was mentors that gave me the encouragement to move up the ladder and to do something to give back to my community. This is my way to give back to the community, is running for re-election and getting re-elected as Councilor at Large. I want to thank everybody else for coming here. There's a lot more work to be done. I humbly ask for one of your votes on November 5th. Thank you so much.
You wanted to clap for him, I don't know. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. It is the end. It's the end of the road, and it has been a long road, but at the same time, it is an important road. We're running for re-election. We're running for office. I thank everybody who's on this stage tonight because Quincy means something to them. It means a lot to me. I wear my heart in my sleeve when it comes to Quincy. When the MBTA wasn't giving us concessions, I was right here in Central Middle School demanding that they give us something, that they give us the Charlie Pass for the commuter rail for the Charlie Pass, that they give us more buses, that they give us concessions. They gave it to the North Shore. They needed to give it to Quincy. I am a very vocal counselor. When I can't get it done on the city council, I go outside and I work with my community. When developments happened in the neighborhoods and the neighborhoods needed to organize, I went out and made sure that the small neighborhoods were working with the big neighborhoods so that the planning board was hearing them. We are going to rezone in the city of Quincy, and we need strong counselors who are not going to let developers take over our city. Money does play a part in the city of Quincy. It doesn't play a part with me. But what does play a part with me is the residents and the taxpayers of the city of Quincy, and knowing that I have your best interest at your heart on the council. I ask humbly for one of your 3 votes on November 5th so I can stay your representative as your councilor at large and that we can have some checks and balances. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy your evening. And come out and vote on November 5th.
Good evening. Thank you guys again for hosting us here tonight, and thank you again to all of you for taking the time to join us. My name is Nina Liang, and I am your city councilor at large. I'm not the new kid on the block anymore, but that has not and will not stop me from fighting for you and for the future of our city. It will not stop me from asking the tough questions. It will not stop me from holding people accountable, and most importantly, it won't stop me from fighting for you and for the future of our city. 4 years ago, when I ran for office, I ran because Quincy is my home. It's where I was born, raised, work, and live, and I wanted to find ways to make our city stronger, better, and more inclusive of our diverse community. In that time, I will not stop fighting to hold the MBTA accountable. I will not stop fighting to make sure that your voice and everyone's voices are heard. I won't stop fighting to make sure that our small businesses are thriving and that everyone who calls Quincy home feels safe and welcome here. As I said earlier, our government must not forget its top priority, and that's serving all of the residents of Quincy. It's why I ran for office, it's why I love being your city councilor, and it has and always will be my top priority. This is our city, it's our future, and I am and always will be your voice. Thank you again for your time, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
So I am Joanne Sullivan. I respectfully request your vote on November 5th. As a mother, my oldest, Caitlin, got into Holy Cross. She's now 26. We came for a visit and got invited to move here from so many people, like an extended family. We're so blessed to have Quincy as our new home. Been very involved in the community since 2012 when we moved here, in the church, in the sports, in the community, Friends of Wollaston Beach, Friends of the Blue Hills. It's just so much fun to meet such great people of all ages, respectfully working together, learning about the issues, learning about things before we moved here and how to help to give back. My little tyke went to college. I have the time. I have my family's blessing. I respectfully ask for your vote so I can continue to help resolve and repair issues for the good and make sure the negative issues stay away from our beautiful town. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. I want to thank the Quincy Democrats for hosting us this evening. I want to thank Quincy Access Television for filming, and I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening and joining us. My name's Frank Rubino, candidate for councilor at large. I'm a first-time candidate. Since the beginning of June, I've been going around, crisscrossing the city, knocking on doors, chatting with residents. I've hit all 6 wards, and the 3 top concerns I've been hearing from residents is the heavy traffic congestion, the overdevelopment, and how Quincy is not an affordable place to live for all residents. So those would be my top priorities if elected. I won't be able to solve every single problem here in Quincy, but by working together, we can address these issues and make a noticeable impact. I ask for your vote on November 5th. If elected, it would be an honor to serve as one of your city councilors. Thank you.
Thank you all. At this time, we'd like to ask the candidates for Ward 5 to make their way to the tables. At this time, we'd like to ask our candidates to make opening remarks, starting with Steve.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Steve Christo. I am running to bring the voices of Ward 5 to City Hall. I'm committed to representing our community. I'm committed to bringing all residents into Quincy's decision-making process. I have an extensive background in business, finance, and risk management. My management experience, along with my financial background, have prepared me to bring those skills to lead Ward 5 into the future. The knowledge I have gained by managing over 400 professionals across the country and internationally, coupled with my eagerness to give back to my community, is why I think I am best suited to lead Ward 5 into the future. I thank you for being here this evening. I know you will hear why I am the best candidate for Quincy at this time. With that, I'd like to, hand it over to my colleague.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Phelan, candidate for Ward 5 City Councilor. It's a position that I held some 30 years ago. And recently I retired and I look to get back into politics after my wife told me, she gave me permission to run because in '96 I said I would never run again. And she said, we need to do something in Wallaston Center, and you're the right guy to do it. So at that time, I decided, talking with my family and a lot of my friends, I decided to run. Why do I think I'll be a great counselor? I think one of the key things about being a city councilor is that you're accessible and available to people. When I was in before, I did regular office hours. It's something I would pledge to do, to keep in touch with the constituents, to alert them when a development or anything is coming up. I would let them know before it happened. I was always known as a counselor who always spent my mailing budget to let people know what's going on. So I've decided to get back in and run again. And over the last couple of months, since May, I've been going around door to door, listening to thoughts and concerns of people in the area. And I think I am the best qualified to come back and use my experience to use it to the best effect of the residents of Wallaston. So thank you.
Thank you. The first question will be for Stephen. As you may or may not be aware, there has been an increase of congestion and lack of parking due to construction. What can be done to improve these conditions for the residents of these neighborhoods?
Okay, well, thanks for the question. And yes, I am aware that the traffic is a problem in Quincy. I think there's a number of things that can be done. First off, when starting new developments, I think we need to have the infrastructure issue addressed by both the city, the city council as well as the developer. We need to get their involvement and make sure that they are good stewards of the neighborhoods and help with the process. The other thing that we can do, and parking is a big problem here, there's not enough parking spaces for the development. There's not enough excise tax collected on the automobiles that are sitting and being housed in Quincy. We should move forward to collect those. Possibly we should put in new or reinstitute parking permits. And we really need to be realistic with the development and the parking that goes along with it. The other way to get around it, but it's going to take some time, is to turn Quincy into a walking and a commuter city. I think it's a bit on its way, but Wollaston itself has been neglected, Wollaston Center that is, for a number of years. And I'd like to see that development turn into something with a little bit more green space, encourage new businesses to come into Wollaston Center, and do the best we can to promote businesses. But we also need to make sure, again, with the development, that the infrastructure is in play to handle what we have and what's out there. I know it's also a safety issue. There's many residents that don't feel comfortable walking. Particularly in Wollaston, I'm a little bit astounded that the sidewalk situation, particularly around the senior housing, has been let go so long. People with walkers and with disabilities can't even make it from their building to CVS. I think it's really time we do something about it. And if it's part of a long-term project, my thought is, well, let the long-term project go, but make sure, as that's going, that we make sure that the residents can get around the city in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles, your question?
Could I just have the question again, please?
Of course. As you are aware, there has been an increase of congestion and lack of parking due to construction. What can be done to improve these conditions for the residents of these neighborhoods?
There's a lot of things I think we can do. One of the things we can do is, in a lot of, I've gone to a lot of planning board, zoning board meetings, several of the Conservation Commission meetings at night, and what I see is when developments are coming in, they're not going by what the law is, what the law for the amount of parking spaces are, what the law is. I think it's important that we put the developers' feet to the fire to make sure that, particularly when you give variances on parking, those cars simply end up out in the street. And when you're putting things in small areas and you don't have enough parking spaces, those spaces, they simply go out into the street. And I see a lot of times where variances are giving to different developments, where people are going in, and I've seen a lot of times, I've gone and spoken against several of those developments at the planning board, at the zoning board, because I feel very strongly that we need to work with the neighborhoods to come up with solutions to some of these problems. Some of the same problems are not going to be the same problems as people on Wollaston Hill or the people down in Wollaston Center. We need to work with the neighborhoods to find out if there's certain traffic ordinances that could be put in to help prevent it, to see if the light situations at those different intersections, if they need to be upgraded, they're upgraded with more up-to-date, more modern signalization. I think there is a large population. We've gone up over 25% in our population. So I think clearly that working both with city departments to help the traffic and parking to make sure that they're putting in the right infrastructure. And before we build, this is one thing I do agree with Steve on, before we build the buildings, the infrastructure should be there. We should not put up a big building and then be trying to catch up by redoing the signals, redoing the different parts, redoing the streets around there to make it so it works for them. So I would work from those 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles, this next question starts with you.
Okay.
What do you think the plans to build up Wollaston should be?
This is actually one of the first reasons I decided to run again. And I think the plans for Wollaston should, first of all, the first floor should be retail. I think one of the projects that came in looking for the old Wollaston Theater wanted to put almost 7.5 stories up with literally just about half as much parking as it would need. I think we need to try to promote, different forms of transportation, like using the T and using that. But right now, we're a society where people still want to have their cars. So I think any development going in there would need two things. First of all, they need to find some parking. Secondly, I would want to see the first floor of any development going in there to have retail, to maintain the character of Wollaston Center. So if you maintain retail, you have the services that could be providing services to the people in the neighborhood. I think some of the developments that have already been proposed down there have no retail isn't even part of it. I think that would have to be part of it. I also think that restricting the height limitation to 6 stories. I'm not for going up and making canyons out of Wollaston Center. I would also like to see with any of those that we expand the sidewalks, we look into green space, and we look into ways where people could have, if they were going to put a restaurant in, they could put chairs out in the sidewalk and have more green space down there. So I think those couple of things, particularly, I think it's important that anything we build there keeps the retail character of the neighborhood. I think with the Wollaston T Station, you have a lot of walking traffic that's happening now, and I think it's very important to maintain the character of it as a business in a retail district.
Thank you. Steve, same question.
Would you mind repeating it?
Of course. What do you think the plans to build up Wollaston should be?
All right, thank you. Again, one of the reasons I'm running is want to have a say in what really happened with Wollaston Center. But I first have to go back and say that I think the city and the current administration has really let Wollaston Center go too long. It's almost 20 years since anything new that's happened there that should have been in play, should be in play now. We shouldn't be talking about what's going on in the retail. It should already have happened. But since it hasn't happened, what I think we need to get the citizens of the communities more involved. As your city councilor for Ward 5, I will make sure you know when the meetings are, when the discussions are going to happen with respect to Wollaston Center. I was currently at the meeting at Central, and I was pretty discouraged at the volume of people who were there, but part of it was because of the notification. No one knew when the meeting was going to take place. As your ward councilor, I will make sure that you know when to be at these meetings so you can speak your voice and have your say. I also believe that the retail space needs to be included and vibrant. I think we have to encourage small businesses that are currently successful in Quincy to make their way over to to Wollaston Center and open up smaller satellite facilities there. I think we should have green space, particularly for the senior housing that's in there. Right now, there isn't a plan to include any green space that I'm familiar with. They want to build buildings again, but we need to see what the community wants and what the communities can cover. And I believe we need to entice the existing small businesses that are there to keep going and push for a bigger retail space, but what the community wants. I think we need to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. I think the infrastructure needs to be addressed ahead of time, and I really believe that part of the problem is we haven't focused on Wollaston. We need the residents involved, and as your Ward 5 City Councilor, I will make sure that we will be in play and make sure that your voices are heard.
Thank you, Stephen. We would like at this time to invite Charles to make his closing statement.
At this time, I'd like to thank the City Democratic Committee for holding these debates. I thank Quincy Access Cable for filming it. I think it's very important for people to see these, and I know as I've been going door to door, people asking, when can I see this, when can I see that? So this is a good forum to do it in. I'm going to respectfully ask that people vote for me on November 5th. I think I have the experience, I have the background, I've worked more than 30 years in government, both on the state and federal level, state and local level, I'm sorry. I've also worked in the private sector. I live with my wife, Michelle Leiden, who owns a business in Wollaston Center, Hamill Leiden Funeral Home, so we're very aware of the issues that are going on in the center and really want to make some improvements. But also, there are also areas up in Hospital Hill. It's a big ward with a lot of different issues, and I think I bring the experience and the background to be a very effective Ward 5 councilor. So I thank you, and don't forget to vote on the 5th.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for having me here. I really appreciate it. I want to say that I've learned so much meeting and speaking with the residents of Ward 5 since I decided to run this past summer. Many residents are so frustrated that their voices have not been heard. The stagnation of representation in Ward 5 is one of the reasons I am running, but it's not the only reason. I believe I can lead Ward 5 and Quincy into the future. Quincy is at a crossroads and elections matter. We, the residents, are what make Quincy a great city. We are diverse, we share common goals as neighbors, and we deserve a leader who is ready and able to listen, plan, and act. I will get things done. I have the drive, I have the skill set, and most of all, I have the experience at this time to lead Ward 5 and Quincy into the future. Thank you for having me here tonight. My goal is to be the best I can be to serve as your counselor. Please take a look at my website and reach out with any questions. Thank you for your time, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it? You guys did it. At this time, we would like to ask the candidate for Ward 1 to please come up.
Hi, everybody. You guys have done so good. Thank you.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, opening statement.
Opening statement? Okay. So, thank you all for hanging around. I know it's tough to go on last. I think I'm representing Ward 7 or something, but. And I noticed you left the chair out here, so you're inviting me to make a Clint Eastwood Republican convention joke, but I'm not going to do that either. So I wanted to say that I promised the people of Ward 1 5 things, actually 4 things, that I would restore communication, dialogue, transparency, and access to the position of Ward 1 counselor. But I'm going to add a 5th thing tonight, which is called physical presence. I promise I'm going to show up for the people of Ward 1, even when there's not that many people left, even when I'm at a sign holding by myself, even when it feels like there's no one listening. I'm going to be there and I'm going to show up. The deterioration of the relationship and communication under the current counselor has been disappointing at best, but disgraceful is probably a more accurate term. And I'm going to change all that by, number 1, like I said, showing up. Number 2, getting back to you. 3, I'm going to start having weekly office hours. 4, I'm going to bring back community meetings to Ward 1. Right now, the ones we have are as rare as a comet, and they're just there to tell you what decisions are about to be inflicted upon you, rather than to get your input.
Thank you, Joe. Your time is actually up.
All right, let's do it. Can I have Dave's time?
What?
Never mind, go on.
If only. Do you want to ask the first question? No, you can say the first. Okay. Your first question is, flooding issues from inclement weather and large storms have been occurring more frequently as of late. Should there be new building codes for homes repeatedly damaged by the flooding?
Yes, but I think it should fall under a larger initiative that I want Quincy to take on. I want Quincy to be a leader in local environmental policy. That's why I want to establish what I'm calling the Green Zoning Task Force, which would be a collaboration between environmental experts and the experts in building that we have plenty of in Quincy. We have very talented builders in Quincy, and I want to put them in the same room and come up with innovative and sustainable solutions that work for the builders, that work for the planet, and also work for people's personal budgets. So yes, and also while we're doing that, we obviously need to think about the inevitable storms that are coming our way because we've waited too long to address these issues as a society, not just in Quincy. But we obviously need to face the reality that times have changed, the weather has changed, and even with new seawalls, we can't keep the water completely out of our lives. So I want to not only change those zoning laws, but I also want to expedite seawall projects, floodgates, marshes, pumping stations so that we can better survive the next storm.
Thank you. A topic we haven't discussed today. What is your opinion on the Weymouth compressor station, and how do you propose to engage more residents in Quincy regarding the site of the compressor station?
Well, like everyone else you've talked to tonight, I want to see the Weymouth compressor station go away. I don't want it to happen. It doesn't belong in a population as dense as what they're describing. The idea that our local leaders, our state leaders, would allow such a thing to happen to make us the canaries in the coal mines of putting a compressor station in a situation that's not been, we've not seen it anywhere else in the country. When you add the fact that it doesn't really benefit anybody around here, it benefits Canada or somewhere, but I know it doesn't benefit the people of Ward 1, Quincy, or Massachusetts. So I want to work hard to bring awareness to that. If I'm elected to office, I will use my office to educate people. If you go to my website, you'll find that I produce some of the most engaging instructional content of any candidate either in office or running for office. And I will use that skill to bring awareness to the compressor station as well. But I'd also like to know why our good mayor has such a special relationship with the governor, where he doesn't come to the environmental debate because he's out with the governor, why that good relationship hasn't translated to the governor's cooperation in saving us from this compressor station. That's a question I have.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'd like to move to your closing statement.
Oh, okay. So I want to establish the Green Zoning Task Force. I want to establish a participatory budgeting system which will let people bypass government bureaucracy to fund some out of discretionary income, some citizen proposed and voted on projects. I want to bring a focus back to infrastructure. I'm appalled that the Trump administration EPA is suing us after all the hard work we've done to clean up our waters. I want to also let people walk on the sidewalks in Ward 1 and in Quincy without having to step into the streets. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm bothered that I'm here and my ward councilor's not. The job is to show up. The fact that he's not here tells you he thinks it's his job. It's not. Ward 1 sends the representative with their vote. I'm going to earn your vote every day. I don't expect it, I don't feel I'm entitled to it, and I'm going to show up for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that concludes our night. Hold on. I can't, it doesn't reach.
Did everybody find the evening informative? I hope you did. I want to thank you all for coming. On behalf of the Quincy Democratic City Committee, thank you for being here. And please, vote. Vote in every election. Thank you for coming. Good evening.